So once again, for everyone who's just joining us, hello and welcome to today's SASI lunch break. It's already the 10th edition of the SASI lunch break since its rebranding. And today we're going to dive deeper into the important topic of gender equality and women's empowerment, which is, of course, not just a nice to have topic, but actually a real business case. And we're going to learn lots about it. We are very pleased to welcome Solidaridad Asia today, together with Perempuan Mahardhika, to present us their project and why they are convinced that corporate due diligence and gender equality go hand in hand. And why is that? Well, they say that when companies address gender and equality issues in their supply chains, they not only mitigate risks, but they unblock opportunities for more sustainable growth. So today we are going to have two speakers, and they will both be presenting on their joint project Power, which is part of the SASI initiative Feminist and Fair. My name is Annette Tiroli-Harms. I'm from the Policy Institute for Consumer Policy, and it's a great pleasure to be guiding you through today's session. Please note that, as usual, the session is recorded, and you can use the chat function to ask questions throughout the entire lunch break regarding any of the speakers or anything around the topic, the questions that you may have. In fact, for those who are beyond just today's session interested in the topic of women's empowerment, we have further information on the topic, as we had a previous lunch break about a year ago on the Feminist and Fair initiative, under which today's project Power sits. And there's also a dedicated website with fact sheets and more information. So we are going to post the links to these further information material right now in the chat. And with this, without any further ado, I would like to hand over the microphone for further opening remarks to Charlotte Haeusler Vargas, who is team lead at the Sustainable Agricultural Supply Chain Initiative, the SASI. Please, Charlotte, come up to the stage. Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Thank you, Annette. So it's a great pleasure to welcome all of you today to today's 10th SASI lunch break. In this well-established and trusted format on the first Friday of every month, we present various practice-oriented tools and guidelines, demonstrating that the implementation of corporate due diligence is feasible for everyone. The lunch break aims to facilitate dialogue between participants from companies, civil society, and politics, and encourage cooperation along agricultural supply chains. Today's focus could not be more timely: gender equity in agricultural supply chains. And let me start with this thought. Gender equity is not just a women's issue. It is a societal issue, a strategic driver for sustainability. The numbers tell a powerful story. Women make up 43% of the global agricultural workforce. In sub-Saharan Africa, they produce as much as 80% of food. Nevertheless, women face significant barriers that limit their full participation and potential, holding less than 15% of land rights worldwide, and in sub-Saharan Africa, receiving only around 10% of available credit and 5% of extension services. These inequalities are not just unfair, they are inefficient and stifle development by restricting productivity, innovation, and sustainability. Imagine for a moment what would happen if these barriers were removed. Studies show that equal access to land and resources could increase farm yields by 20 to 30%, enough to reduce hunger for 150 million people across the globe. And when women step into leadership roles in cooperatives, we see more transparent finances, more inclusive decisions, and companies benefit from stronger trust with communities. This is why, for business, gender equity is not just a moral responsibility, it is a strategic opportunity. Making agricultural supply chains more resilient and productive supports compliance with EU due diligence laws and other international standards. From a business perspective, it strengthens brand reputation and consumer trust and opens opportunities for innovation and market growth. Put simply, corporate due diligence and gender transformative approaches are inseparable. Gender equity is a societal responsibility and at the same time a business opportunity. By embedding equity issues in supply chains, we create agri-food systems that are fairer, more resilient, and more sustainable. Today, we will see this in action. In East Kutai, Indonesia, where the Power Project, as part of Feminist and Fair initiative funded by BMZ, is working with women and trans-migrant workers in the palm oil sector. It is therefore my pleasure to welcome Solidaridad Asia and the women's organization Perempuan Mahardhika, who will present their experiences and results. Thank you for being part of the conversation today. I look forward to the discussion, your ideas and experiences.
Great. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for your opening remarks and already introducing the project to us. And in fact, she is also already on camera. I would like to welcome Neha to present us from Solidaridad Network Asia. There she is Senior Manager Gender, and she has over 15 years of experience in advancing gender equality across agricultural and other sectors. Neha currently leads the gender portfolio for Solidaridad Asia, and there she drives inclusive strategies across programs and operations and is spearheading the work on feminization of supply chains. And I'm really excited to hear what this is all about. It actually means that she ensures women are formally recognized as farmers and thus drives sustainability in agricultural supply chains to really unlock all of these fantastic numbers of increasing yields and making the societal advancement that also Charlotte has just talked about. Her work has impacted likely over 500,000 women already. So if this is not a number that convinces you, I am very much curious to hear all about your work and how you do it, Neha. So please take us through your presentation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Charlotte and Hans. Let me just, sorry, I was just trying to take control of the presentation. So I'm Neha. I work as a gender lead for Solidaridad in Asia region, and as already introduced, that I work towards feminization of supply chain, which is a concept which I would take everyone through during this presentation. Apart from the Power Project, which this presentation is primarily going to speak about, where we see feminization of supply chain in action. So moving forward. So when we see the trajectory of participation of women in supply chains, wherever the market is very informal and not really too much of market intervention in terms of formal market is done, there's a lot of activity which is being done by women. And there's a lot of market related work that women do. But as soon as the market starts getting formalized, so when I say formalized, there are private sector players, there is a formal supply chain. We can see that women are falling outside this supply chain, and there is a reason to it. So if you see this slide, on the left-hand side, it's green when there is informal markets, and there's a lot of women participating. But as soon as we start moving towards the right, where we see that red box, where hardly any women would participate. And reason being illiteracy, high dependence on male members of the family, confidence, self-esteem, identity. And as soon as we keep transitioning towards formal markets, again, there would be restrictive norms like mobility. So advisory services are not designed as for the need of women. Then the non-inclusive procurement system and sustainability policies. Again, if we move further ahead, the biggest hurdle is the land holding pattern on which the whole agriculture system depends. Women unfriendly tools in agriculture system, and the newest one in the block being digital divide. So there is a huge gender digital divide if we talk about the Asian context as a whole, and also in African context. So this is how, from informal to formal, when the market transcends, how it affects women in agriculture. So I was trying to find out what happens if there are more women in the formal supply chain. How does the company or private sector benefit out of it? And I was trying to figure out certain points, but then I realized maybe it would be better to see what companies say. So when I was trying to do this research, there's a lot of things that the companies say. For example, I have seen Nestle coming out boldly saying how they have invested in Africa on the cocoa farmers and how it is ensuring a consistent supply in their for their raw materials. Similarly, PepsiCo has a huge investment of around $18.2 million on with women farmers and entrepreneurs, so that their sourcing is also consistent, of better quality, and the required quantity is ensured. Similarly, we had few projects in other commodities apart from palm. Palm will take on in an elaborate way during the next slides. But we had other commodities, for example, soya, for example, milk, and other fruits and vegetables, spices. And similarly, we find that as soon as women are imbibed into the supply chain, it becomes much consistent. It becomes much it has a better quality and quantity. The production is much more consistent as per the need of the market. This is the model I was talking about, feminization of supply chain. According to our few pilots and demonstration, we have developed this model where we see that the inner circle is the supply chain circle, where the market interventions are to be done, where we see that the market, the private sector needs to there's something. Yeah. The private sector needs to promote more women entrepreneurs in their supply chain. They need to have a inclusive sourcing policy. They have to have a better supply chain governance mechanism where women can participate, and more investment on women producers. So this is a circle where market can play a big role. Beyond that is society and community. So because there is a lot of dynamics, gender dynamics, which needs to be taken care of before really getting into market and really bringing women into these kind of market interventions. So unless there is these social norms like these social norms like mobility, household power dynamics, decision-taking capacity, all of these needs to be resolved before even getting into those market interventions. And the third is influencing the industry association, working with the consumers on behavioral change, and also certifications and other such bodies, which is very important for market interventions. So how these can be more inclusive. So overall, when all of this is done in a community, we can see a transformational change happening in the life of women, and also a change in the whole systems of market being more inclusive and more sustainable. Now coming to the power project. Coming to the power project, so I will let Vivi take the part of community. I wanted to demonstrate how the cooperatives through which we are working with the community is feeling about having more women and migrant population on board in their systems. So the kind of activities that we supported are training on good agriculture practices, training on gender basics, training on financial inclusion, training on enterprise development, confidence building, and support women group to work on other income generating activities apart from palm plantations. So a dipstick study was done for the cooperative, and what we figured out is that on a scale of 1 to 5, if we asked to rate them, so improved quality of produce, they said that it used to be 2.5, now it is 4 because of the participation of women in their group. The quantity of produce has gone up. Enhanced quality, that they rated it from 2.5 to 3.5, because obviously quality would take even a larger time. It is 1.5 years. So from 2.5 to 3.5, consistency in supplies is from 3 to 4. So we can see that the case demonstrates that when women participate in such market mechanisms, the quantity, quality, and consistent supply goes up. So the next thing that was asked was, are there any tangible examples where women's involvement contributes to better agriculture output? So they told a lot of things, of which few of the things are in terms of harvesting. Women are a big support. Better handling of plantation finances, since the time women have been trained on financial literacy and good agriculture practices. Better upkeep and care of plantation. Women's effort in composting and processing waste is very high. Women's use of organic fertilizer, including crop residue and household waste, have been very high, which means it would become even more sustainable. With the presence of women, plantation activities are scheduled better. So whatever schedule they prepare, it always remain on schedules. The next is financial and time management are well managed. So these were some of the outcomes because of participation of women on the cooperative, and which is why the cooperative was very positive on having more of such interventions. So having said that, it is not just one-way street where, women farmers would benefit from company or company would benefit. It's a win-win situation. So if we see from farmer to company, what does the company get out of it is consistent supply, which is one of the biggest issue of lots of companies who would source agriculture produce. So ensuring reliable and steady flow of goods is something that company gets out of it. Quality of produce, because women are the one who are actually doing agriculture, although they would not be called farmers, but most of the work would be done by women. So if the trainings are delivered directly to women, it would result in a better quality because it's first-hand delivery of training and implementation. The third is quantity of production increases, so volume gets better, and if there is a lack of quantity, it's better to have more women on in the system, so to ensure that kind of quantity. Fourth is working conditions. So because the women are working in a company, in a private sector setup, so the working conditions improve, and it also helps women, companies to, there are so many due diligence process now, like EU CS to start with, which we had started this whole conversation with. So it has a lot of gender component, human rights component, which if one starts working and having women on board and training them well, reduces the risk of within the supply chain, and reduces the risk for supply chain to have such issues. In fact, we also work on due diligence quite a bit, and we have a toolkit where we can implement the toolkit. It's a kind of self-assessment tool to see how risks, where are the risks and what are the risks in a supply chain. In case somebody's interested, can write back to me and I can connect you to the expert of this particular topic. Veer, I'm sure he's also in the call, but yes, and regulatory compliances are fulfilled if we have more women trained and working within the supply chain. From company to farmer, for sure, because there is direct transfer of money to farmers. So income, there is ensured income, capacity enhancement, since there is a lot of training being imparted to women farmers, so the capacity and agency increases, ensured buybacks. So if there is an ensured buyback from cooperative, it gives them a security, sense of security, continued market access, because we are working towards formalization of supply chain and having more women in the supply chain. So there's a continued market access and better living conditions because of all this due diligence process which the company has to take care of. So it's a win-win situation for both women farmers and company. So having said that, I think I would want to hand over to my colleague Vivi, who would take all of us through the next few slides of the same project and see how it has affected the community at large.
Thank you very much, Neha. Thank you very much. Before we hand over actually to Vivi, I would like to just briefly open the floor to our audience for questions on this first part of your presentation. So yes, in the audience, anyone who has questions, please just write them into our chat function, and then we can address questions on this first part directly to Neha. Thanks very much, Neha. Maybe while people are thinking and sort of typing their questions, you really made the point that your work consists in ensuring that women are formally recognized as farmers. Can you just be more specific, sort of what's the status quo if that's not the case, and then how does your work move them towards formality, just sort of in a nutshell once again?
Yes, of course. Because most of the places and countries, there's a definition of farmer, which is based on land holding, which automatically means that 12% of women, there's only 12% of women average worldwide which would have land holding, which means that 80% of the work being done by women, but only 12% getting recognition of being a farmer. By connecting them on a cooperative or on any of these community-based organization, we are giving them an option of having this platform where they can have contracting mechanism with the market. So because they don't have land holding, they cannot go individually for a contract with market player for selling the produce. It will always happen with the landholder's name. Now, with this community-based organization coming in between and acting as a mediator, so now they have a contract. Since they are working on the field, they are being trained. So they develop their agency and then also negotiate with the market through this cooperative or through this community-based organization. So now, because money flows into her account, she is the one who is handling agriculture. She is the one who is taking most of the decisions. So she is finally getting recognized as a farmer and not just as wife of the farmer.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think that was brilliantly put. And I think it also responds to the second and third question of the questions that are now in the chat, but let me take you through the other questions from our participants. Can you describe what constitutes the digital divide and give more background on this topic, please?
Yes, of course. So when I say gender digital divide, if we see the data, there is a lot of gap, one in access to smartphones. So generally women would have those push button phones, the smaller ones, and men would have smartphones. One is that. Second, a lot of time, especially in the rural context, women would not be using internet, while she would be using phone to make a few phone calls, but other services is something that she is not able to use in most of the Asian context, in India, in Bangladesh, in Indonesia, in Sri Lanka, even in most of the African context, we see that there is a huge gap. And this is mostly because of access to that information, knowledge, and also resource. So that gap is increasing. It is a huge gap, and a lot of services, especially agriculture services, are now being designed to be imparted through these digital platforms. So there's a lot of digital advisory, but women are, one, marginalized in agriculture, and second, due to this gap of not being able to use internet and not having an access and ownership of mobile, especially smartphone, results in further marginalization by when she is not again able to get an access to information.
Does that also imply sort of being excluded from microfinance, or is that usually something that is sort of sufficient with the types of phones that women predominantly use? Or sort of the access to finance and salary also linked to smartphone usage usually, as far as you might know?
Yes, of course, because wherever we are doing this digital advisory systems or digital inclusion, we also work towards financial inclusion. Because even if in most of the cases women would have a bank account, in another most of the cases, she would not be the one using the bank account because majorly people have started using bank account on the phone. Or there are certain, these mobile wallet system which she is not able to use, which means that not using financial systems, not able to create that credit system, and then again not being able to become bankable.
And then there's a final question in the chat, which is about what are your experiences in conducting the trainings? Which advantages do you see in training women separately? And what advantages are there instead of training women and men jointly?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Huh? So basically, if we start training women jointly in the beginning, especially in the context where we work, social norms are such that she would not be comfortable to sit together with the men folk. So we try to train them separately. Sorry. We also try to position the training in the hours where she is more free. She has less household work, so that she is able to attend that training at least. So to start with, it is always good to start with separate training for women, but also have household trainings so that there is no backlash from the household. So we go ahead in both ways, where we train women separately on these technical skills, but we also go to the household to sensitize them why it is required, why it is important, so that they are more supportive of whatever work the women is doing.
Great, very clear. We will have you back on stage, Neha, just after the end of the presentation. Grab a glass of water, and thanks for speaking through your little cough. So, all very human. Okay, thank you very much for now. With this, I would like to continue to the second part of the presentation of the Power Project. So please, everyone, welcome with me Vivi Widyawati, who is Program Manager at Perempuan Mahardhika. And Vivi is a leading Indonesian expert and researcher specializing in gender and labor issues. Her research is not high level. She really seeks to understand what's happening in our world. And to this end, she studies working conditions of women workers, for example, in the nickel industry. Or she also studies women's conditions on palm oil plantations, as well as other related topics such as maternity rights, sexual harassment, domestic and workplace violence. So Vivi, thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to your part of the presentation. You can also try to switch back on your video and your microphone, because right now you're still on mute, Vivi. I hope she's coming up. We've done our technical checks before, and she's passed them very well. Vivi, your microphone and cam. Yes, now we hear you. We don't see your video yet. Hi, Vivi.
Hi, Anna. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. You can hear me?
Yes, we hear you. We don't see you yet. So maybe try once again, but it might also be a connection issue. Otherwise, just start talking us through your presentation.
Okay.
You've taken over control, so we see your slides. We just don't see your video. It's a pity, but it's okay if we hear you well.
You still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I will start. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Annette, and thank you, Neha, for the first presentation. As we know, women farmers play important roles in palm oil plantation, but their roles is often not recognized due to the dominance of men in palm oil industry. Therefore, to increase the participation of women farmers in decision making at the family, corporative, and village level, our strategy is to improve their understanding and knowledge of gender equality. Through the gender training, women farmers become more aware of their rights, such the rights to be involved in decision making, GAP trainings, financial management trainings, and entrepreneurship skill. We believe that gender equality will increase women resilience in palm oil plantation. As such as understanding the gender-based challenges, and the second is economically empower women, and the third is women have better understanding and knowledge in a good agriculture practices, not just in palm oil, but also able to take up their entrepreneur activities, and also financial literacy trainings have led to better financial management. I want back to the this so you can see what we achieve in 1 year. You know, we have trained community gender leads and trained female farmers, female workers, and also women-led CBOs identified. And after 1 year, our outcomes, the outcome of our after implementing intervention of women farmers through the basic gender trainings, decent work trainings, GAP trainings, and leadership trainings. Like the first is leadership and participation. Power has increased participation and leadership of women farmers in villages organization and forum, such as family welfare and empowerment organization, women farmer groups, and villages consultative meeting, which strengthen women roles in decision-making process and promote more inclusive and gender-responsive village development. And the second outcomes is institutional support. The establishment of women empowerment service institution, for example, in Muarawahau Subdistrict, serving as a strategic partner of the District Office of Women Empowerment and Child Protection in East Kutai Regency to strengthening women protection and empowerment service at the village level. And the third is occupational safety. Increase awareness and understanding among women farmers about the importance of applying occupational safety and health standards in palm oil plantation, leading to tangible initiatives such as the construction of sanitation facility, toilet around the plantation area, because you know such a successful implement in Sekurau-Jaya. Now in Sekurau-Jaya, we have the toilet, so the women farmers can more safety in the when they work in plantation. And the fourth outcomes is sustainable practice. Strengthen the sustainable farming practice through use the organic fertilizer by women farmers group. which not only contributes to reducing environmental impact and improving soil fertility, but also support women reproductive health by minimizing exposure to harmful chemical in agriculture activities. So after 1 year, implement the power project, we are happy to see that now women farmers is more empowered, not only in the family, but also they can lead. They have their own agenda to talk to the cooperative and also to talk in the villages forum. And then for the last, I think that's for me. If Neha want to add or continue for the last slide, please, Neha.
Neha, yes,
Hello.
would you like to add?
Yes, hi, thanks, Vivi. Yeah, I mean, the last slide is mostly on what I expect and how this change can happen where women becomes, systematically part of the supply chain and market um, so that they get equal opportunity, equal participation, equal income, I mean, equality in all the sense. So before, I mean, if we have some time and if time permits, I would also want to touch upon a very important topic, which is CSDDD and gender. How do they align? Because this is again one of the things that we wanted to discuss. And I see that Veer is there. If we could just pass on the mic to Veer for maybe 2-3 minutes to explain how CSDDD and gender goes hand in hand, or maybe other due diligence framework go hand in hand with gender. To throw some light on this topic, it would be great.
Sure.
Over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Neha. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a quick introduction from my side. My name is Veer Mehta. I also work for Solidaridad. Over the last 2 years, I've been focusing significantly on due diligence and the CSDDD. Have been working together with Neha and our colleagues to understand the requirements of the CSDDD and build quick, build quick capacities within MSMEs in the global south to understand the requirements of the CSDDD and then start working on them. I think the topic is of great interest and great importance to me over here because the question, how does the CSDDD relate to gender? I think the answer to which is fairly straightforward. Gender equality and gender parity are human rights issues, and without gender parity and without gender equality, you can't have any semblance of or any notion of human rights. The idea that the CSDDD and other due diligence legislation, I don't want to focus primarily on the CSDDD, but for example, the due diligence legislation in France, coming up in the UK, in Germany as well, they all speak the language of human rights, and any rights-based approach will tell you that a gender lens is not just good to have, but necessary for there to be any kind of conceptualization or pure conceptualization of the concept of human rights. But that's theoretical. How does it look really in practice? Over the last few months, actually really over the last year, Solidaridad has been developing a CSDDD strategy with many textile manufacturing MSMEs across the world, especially in Ethiopia and in India. And what we've noticed is that those companies that start understanding the requirements of a risk-based legislation like the CSDDD and the requirements of human rights diligence automatically also start developing and start excelling in these gender-based metrics. What are some of these metrics? For example, we worked closely with the textile factory in Ethiopia, where we saw the improvement of women-led representation groups. So women-led groups for workers, women-led groups for management staff, whereas there were none before. Now, of course, these are small examples, and I won't go into too many details about what exactly these metrics are, but safe to say that in the MSMEs and smallholder farmers were the last bastion where gender parity, human rights, decent work were not really able to reach. And the CSDDD due diligence legislation as a whole is a great driver towards that end goal. And I think while the CSDDD offers significant challenges and its current state has been severely watered down, we still do see it as a significant driver towards these goals. And while voluntary guidelines have brought us to a certain stage where we are today, where big brands are mandated, or at least voluntary mandated through their shareholder engagement and through their reporting requirements to talk about the issue of gender, we haven't seen that passed down through the supply chain. Now with the CSDDD, I think that last forefront, or the last last space where gender parity or decent work or human rights hasn't really been able to have its full flourishment, we see the CSDDD as a fantastic driver towards that end. So I'll stop there, but just as a quick example of how the CSDDD can actually, or rather how the CSDDD and gender parity do go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thanks, Veer, and so sorry to put you on the spot, but I think it was really needed to understand this angle of why women, why gender, and why it is important when we talk about such a subject in a holistic manner. So now coming to the call to action, what I understand is how gender and having women farmers on board is not just a social or good to have criteria, but it is a business case. It is a due diligence case, and it is something which the private sector or the market players need to invest. So my call to action as of now is that, feminization of supply chain is coming up as a movement. So we would encourage you to join that movement, be part of that movement. Second is to commit to procurement, because unless the businesses start procuring from women farmers, the income doesn't go to them. So can there be a pledge to procure at least 1/4 of the produce, whatever agriculture produce is being sourced from women farmers? The third can be allocating sustainability budget, because unless there is inclusivity, there the sustainability is a question mark. So can there be a dedicated budget, say about 30%? Of sustainability budget for inclusivity as well. And the last one is add it to the board meeting agenda, and not just a good to have a CSR or a smaller agenda, but because it makes a business sense, because it can be risky. So it should be a larger agenda which can be discussed in the board meeting. So these are 4 call to actions which if implemented, if done by any company, I can give in writing that they can see the changes, they can see the changes even in the business sense. And I would be more than happy if they come later and tell their story to me. And I would be more than happy to see all these good success stories. Thank you so much. And please feel free even after the webinar, to reach out to us. Both me and Vivi would be more than happy to answer any questions, or have further discussions. We have already given our email IDs for the connect. And thank you so much for hearing us out. Any questions, anything, we are more than happy to answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Vivi, Neha, and Veer, especially for jumping in so spontaneously. So yes, in fact, into the audience, I've already written it into the chat. Please ask the questions specifically to Vivi, but also, of course, more questions to Neha's part of the presentation, to the elaborations that we've just heard from Veer. We do have some time to answer all of these questions, and as well, you're more than welcome to reach out to the speakers or to the SASI for further inquiries later on. So again, while maybe the audience is typing up their questions, let me start with one. We sometimes see that gender empowerment or women's empowerment can sort of come across as a sort of Western, global North kind of issue. And if you present it like that, it sort of seems like an odd concept. How do you go about it in your cultural context to actually address the topics? And what have you felt is sort of successful in bringing that type of context, especially also to the Indonesian context? I let you decide who wants to answer. I think also Vivi has had a connection issue and she's trying to dial back in. So for now, it's on you.
Yeah, I think Vivi would have been the best person to take this question up, but even knowing her work and the way in Indonesia feminist movement it has been there, not just it's not that we have started working on women empowerment now. She has been working on these topics for quite some time, and the movement has already been there. They are already working and doing a lot. So what the way I see is it's not a Western concept, or it's not something which has come from the West and is something that we are adopting, but something which is organically growing, and organically it is something imbibed in the work that we are doing, and feminism as an approach is something that we have taken for even the project. What we see as a support from West is that maybe strengthening these voices, strengthening the work that we're doing, and together making it possible to have to bring in more voices for women and the marginalized section. So, I mean, I would have loved Vivi to elaborate more on how the feminist movement is taking shape in Indonesia specifically. But from the work that she does, it's been for like at least 20 years. PM has been already working on these kind of creating movements in different sectors. So yeah, I would really differ from that view that it's an approach which has been brought by Western side of the globe, and we are trying to adopt it, but it's an organic growth, I believe. Vivi is here, but I'm not sure whether she has been able to listen to the
Yes,
question.
Vivi is back. We were just discussing. I've sort of asked myself whether the concept of women empowerment is sort of something that was sort of put from the Western countries upon your cultures and how you were going about it to being so successful. And Neha has just enlightened us that actually it's organically grown importance, and she's been highlighting for how long you've been working in women's empowerment. So if you just wanted to add something to this, Vivi, we would very much like to hear from your experience of what makes the women empowerment movement so successful in Indonesia, especially. Your microphone is still muted, but I hope you can come back onto the microphone, Vivi. Otherwise, I know that Veer wanted to add to the point previously, so maybe while Vivi is trying to connect.
Sure. I think I would turn the question on its head. If you study the growth of indigenous movements anthropologically in the global South, you'll find that gender equality and gender parity have always been integral to most indigenous communities in the global South. And in fact, it's only post the Industrial Revolution and the commodification of labor that has come from the West that we've seen the divide between the male and the female so significantly grow in the global South. So I think it's the reverse. It's the global South that seems to be exporting our ideas of gender equality and gender parity, not the other way around.
Thank you so much for putting that right. And then to all of you, how do you translate feminist development often, how do you connect feminist issues with labor rights and broader struggles for social justice, and what role does the government play?
Sorry, I lost your voice in between. If you could just repeat your question, I just couldn't hear you properly.
Sure. How do you connect feminist issues with labor rights or other broader struggles for social justice? And what role do you think the government plays in this?
Oh, that's a very tricky one, I believe. I think see, most of these, if you're talking about the palm oil or the sector we're talking about right now, so in most of the plantations, the bigger plantations, if we see, it's mostly women workers which you will see. It's mostly women who are doing all the plantation activities, while they are so unseen. Nobody knows their issues, nobody knows their challenges, nobody even when we speak to government, they don't even know what are the data. So which means it's such an unseen territory. Nobody is investing in it. So having said that, I mean, there are challenges, there are issues. If we talk about, I mean, forget feminist approaches, even if we talk about basic human rights of these women workers in the plantation sector, it is questionable because, interacting firsthand with these women, we know that they are migrant workers. They are living in a very, by no way we can say it's a decent living condition, and with very low wages. And wages is something which invariably we can see that it's different for men and women in almost every sector we see. So yeah, I mean. The labor sector specifically is very much unseen. And while there is a lot of deliberation on farmers, on other workers, but the labor in plantation or labor in bigger sections of not just palm plantation, tea plantation, I mean, all these in agriculture plantations is something which needs more deliberation. So I am not sure whether I've answered your question completely, but yeah, this is what we have seen firsthand in the projects that we do.
I think the concept has become much more clearer. Thank you very much. And now maybe moving from sort of the broad question very much to the specific, there's a question from the audience that says, thank you for the example on buying from women that do not hold the land through a cooperative. Can you give more examples how to empower women when they do not hold these land titles, or any other experience on how you can ensure that women actually do hold these rights to the land?
That's a question which is very close to my heart. I would love to really take that question. So one, land holding is the biggest challenge for women in agriculture. And not just women in agriculture, land is the biggest, if I can say it in the rights perspective. So land is something for which everyone is fighting. So getting into that conversation where, you want this land rights and these kind of conversation to happen, but it's a distant dream. I mean, for me, if I think that, from 12% to 50%, it would take maybe another 1,000 years to go. So if we do not delink agriculture from land, it will be a vicious cycle. We can never end that conversation of how this land holding pattern would improve. So there is a need where we give recognition to women who are farming and not who are holding the land. So going beyond the conversation of land holding, while it is very important that women should start having these assets, but only when she starts having income, she can also buy those assets. So what we are trying to do is move beyond that conversation and reduce maybe from 1,000 years, if this can reduce to 500 years, is already a big win. So by buying from cooperatives, by buying from these, layer which we form in between women farmers and the market, is something from which she can start earning and in a long term become owner of the land. But till that happens, it is important that we start working on these middle layers where there is a scope for women to participate in the market. One is that. Second is, whenever we talk of farmers, especially in context of women, it is smallholder farmers. So they are mostly wives of smallholder farmers. So it might be a good idea to think whether we should call smallholder farmers or smallholder farming family. So as soon as we take it as a family, as a unit, it becomes both men and women of that household. So both of them would get an identity of a farmer. So all these, for example, there are Kisan credit card in India. So it is always in the name of who is holding the land, but that can change. That can change to the household name. And then both of them have an equal access to resources. So two of the things that can change the situation for now is one, move beyond land holding and think on how to delink agriculture from land and at least pass on those resources to women farmers. And on the second hand, start seeing farming household and not just farmers, because farming is the livelihood for the household and not just one person. If that is what the question intended to.
I hope that the person who asked the question is satisfied. It definitely came across that the topic is very close to your heart, and I think you've made very many important points about how to look at the issue, how to start, and yeah, how to make sure this formalization of women in farming really can take place. Yes, there's she's thanking you for the answer. And I think with this, actually, the time for the questions and answers is actually up. So thanks again, Neha, Veer, and Vivi for joining. I might just give a final try to Vivi if she wanted to add something. But I think as far as I was able to see that it didn't work. So then I think it is time for me to lead over to the summary and outlook. So yes, once again, Neha, Vivi, and Veer, thank you very much for joining our call today, this webinar, and for your valuable inputs. Together, we definitely learned how much women contribute to agricultural supply chains, to actually global food supply, and how much their efforts are often not sufficiently recognized, and how they're even in addition often marginalized, which means they don't get enough recognition and they don't get enough retribution for what they deserve. They can in addition suffer harmful consequences. And really on a global scale, I think Charlotte mentioned initially the numbers, we could increase yields by 20 to 30%, which definitely means that the potential that lies in the women workforce is completely underutilized. So the work of the Power Project showed us the necessary steps for women to gain full recognition and the potential of such due diligence, as well as others. We've heard it from Veer on the CSDDD, how due diligence can bring more potential and more value to the entire supply chains. So on behalf of the SASI team, I would like to extend my thanks to both speakers, to all three speakers actually, and also to you in the audience, the participants, for all your insightful contributions, the important questions you've asked, and I wish you the best for the future of your projects. For any further questions and information, you can, as usual, reach out to SASI via the website, LinkedIn, and also make sure you subscribe to the newsletter so that you are informed about future events, studies, and funding opportunities. Now, before we part, I have two further short announcements regarding future lunch breaks, because we usually meet every first Friday of the month. But right now we will be taking a winter break in December and January. So the next lunch break will take place on February the 6th, and it will be on the topic of natural rubber. More information will, of course, be shared in due time via our usual communications channels. And secondly, today, on a very personal note, today was my last lunch break as a moderator. Future editions of the lunch break will again be presented by my colleague Christian Thorun and other colleagues. After 7 years, I will be leaving the Conpolicy Institute for Consumer Policy, but I will obviously continue to promote more sustainability in our world in a new role. And it's been an immense pleasure to be hosting all these diverse lunch break editions, learning about all of these important topics around agricultural supply chain due diligence, and hearing all your questions and all these interactions with all the fantastic speakers. So keep up the good work. Come back to the future lunch break editions, and I wish you now a pleasant Friday and weekend. Goodbye, everyone.